The metal lock clicked shut with a sound that echoed like a gunshot in the empty restaurant. I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs, my hand still gripping the strap of my purse. The lights in the dining room had already been dimmed, casting long, creepy shadows across the empty tables where families had been laughing and eating just 20 minutes ago. But now it was dead silent. I looked at the waitress. Her name tag said Sarah. She was young, maybe 22, with dark circles under her eyes and hands that were shaking visibly as she pulled her hand away from the deadbolt. She didn't look like a waitress anymore. She looked like someone who had just seen a ghost. "Sarah," I whispered, my voice trembling. "What are you doing? I just need my phone. I left it on table 4. She didn't answer right away. She just stared at me, her eyes wide and watery, like she was deciding whether to run away or scream. Then she took a step closer to me, invading my personal space in a way that made every instinct in my body scream *danger*. She reached out and grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight, too tight. "Promise me," she hissed, her voice barely a breath. I froze. "What?" "Promise me you won't pass out," she whispered, pulling me toward the back of the restaurant, toward the kitchen doors. "And promise me you won't scream. He might still be in the parking lot." My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. Who is in the parking lot? My fiancé. She didn't answer. She just dragged me toward the manager's office in the back, past the stacks of dirty plates and the smell of stale coffee. "I can't let you leave," she said, her voice cracking. "Not until you see what I saw. I was going to delete it. I was going to pretend it didn't happen because I need this job. But then I saw your face when you walked back in." She stopped in front of a small monitor, displaying the security feeds. "You think you had a nice family dinner," she said, her hand hovering over the mouse. "You think you have a moody teenage son and a perfect fiancé. But lady, you have no idea what actually happened at that table while you were in the bathroom." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What are you talking about?" She clicked a file. "Just watch and breathe, please, just breathe." But I couldn't breathe, because what I saw on that screen didn't just break my heart, it shattered my entire reality. But to understand why I ended up on my knees in a dirty restaurant kitchen, sobbing into my hands, you have to understand the dinner. You have to understand Greg. And most importantly, you have to understand my son Tyler. I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world. I really did. 3 years ago, my life was a mess. My husband Dave had walked out on us when Tyler was just 12. He didn't just leave, he emptied the bank accounts, took the car, and left a note on the fridge that said, "I can't do this anymore." That was it. No goodbye to his son, no explanation, just gone. It broke Tyler. Tyler used to be this sunny, happy kid. He played baseball, he cracked jokes, he hugged me for no reason. But after Dave left, a shadow fell over him. He became quiet, angry, he stopped playing sports. He started wearing hoodies pulled low over his face, hiding in his room, listening to music that sounded like screaming. I tried to be enough for him. God knows I tried. I worked double shifts at the hospital as a nurse, coming home with swollen feet and an aching back, just to make sure we could pay the rent and keep food on the table. But I was tired, I was lonely, and I was scared that I was losing my son to a darkness I couldn't understand. Then I met Greg. Greg was everything Dave wasn't. He was a surgeon at the hospital where I worked. He was charming, successful, handsome, and steady. He noticed me when no one else did. He brought me coffee when I was falling asleep at the nurse's station. He asked about my life, he listened. When I told him about Tyler, about the struggles, he didn't run away. He smiled this warm, reassuring smile and said, "He just needs a male figure in his life, Linda. Someone to look up to, someone to guide him." I thought he was an angel sent from above. We dated for a year. It was a whirlwind. Flowers, nice dinners, stability. For the first time in years, I didn't have to worry about the electric bill. I didn't have to cry myself to sleep wondering if we'd end up on the street. Greg wanted to take care of us. He wanted to marry me. There was just one problem. Tyler hated him. And I don't mean regular teenage annoyance. I mean a visceral, deep hatred. Every time Greg walked into the room, Tyler would stiffen. He refused to speak to him. He wouldn't eat the food Greg cooked. He wouldn't ride in Greg's car. "He's fake, Mom," Tyler had told me once, his eyes burning with intensity. "He's not who you think he is." I had sighed, brushing his hair out of his eyes. "Ty, honey, you're just used to it being us against the world. Greg is a good man, he loves us. Please, just give him a chance. Do it for me." Tyler had pulled away from my touch, his jaw tight. I'm doing everything for you, Mom, you just don't see it. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I thought he was just being dramatic. I thought he was jealous of sharing my attention. I was so blind. Tonight was supposed to be the turning point. It was our family unification dinner. We were getting married in 2 weeks. Greg had booked a table at the Velvet Table, the most expensive steakhouse in the city. He wanted to formally ask Tyler for his blessing, to present him with a gift, a new watch. I had pleaded with Tyler all week. Please, Ty, just one nice dinner, just 2 hours, be polite, eat the food, smile for me. Tyler had looked at me with those sad, dark eyes that looked so much like his father's, and finally nodded. Okay, Mom, I'll go, but I'm not eating anything he pays for. Tyler. I'll go, he repeated. I'll be there, I promise. So there we were, table 4, the best seat in the house, right by the window looking out over the city skyline. The restaurant was dimly lit, smelling of truffle oil and expensive cologne. Greg looked dashing in his charcoal suit. He was smiling, chatting with the waiter, ordering a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my first car. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You look beautiful tonight, Linda, he said, his voice smooth like velvet. Thank you, I blushed, feeling like Cinderella. I looked at Tyler. He was sitting on the other side of the booth, wearing a wrinkled button-down shirt I had forced him to iron. He looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat, his eyes darting around the room like he was looking for an exit. He hadn't said a word since we sat down. So Tyler, Greg said, pouring the wine. Big year for you, junior year, thinking about colleges yet? Tyler didn't look up. He was staring at the tablecloth, his hands clenched in his lap. Not really. Well, you need to start thinking, Greg said, his tone shifting slightly. It was still friendly, but there was an edge to it, a patronizing edge. The world is competitive, son. You can't just coast by on your mother's hard work forever. You need to man up, take some responsibility. I flinched. Greg, let's not talk about school tonight. Let's just enjoy the dinner. Greg chuckled, patting my hand. I'm just trying to help him, sweetheart. He needs a little push, a little ambition. Right, Ty? Tyler's head snapped up. His eyes locked onto Greg's. For a second, the air at the table felt electric heavy. I saw something in Tyler's face I had never seen before. It wasn't just anger. It was fear and disgust. I have ambition, Tyler said quietly. Good, Greg smiled, showing too many teeth. Then maybe you'll appreciate this. He pulled a small velvet box out of his pocket and slid it across the table toward Tyler. A little peace offering, a welcome to the family. Tyler stared at the box. He didn't touch it. Open it, I urged gently. It's very generous of Greg. Tyler slowly reached out. He opened the box. Inside was a gold watch. It was flashy, expensive. Thanks, Tyler mumbled, closing the box and pushing it back slightly. But I can't accept this. Greg's smile faltered, his eyes narrowed. Excuse me. I said I can't accept it, Tyler said, his voice gaining a little strength. It's too much. I don't want your money, Greg. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt my heart rate spike. This was going terribly. Tyler, I said, my voice warning. It's fine, Linda, Greg said, waving his hand dismissively. But his jaw was tight. He leaned forward, staring at Tyler. You're a proud kid, I get it, but you'll learn. Everyone has a price. Everyone has something they want. Tyler looked down at his empty plate. Not everyone. I felt like the walls were closing in. I needed a break. I needed to breathe. The tension was making me nauseous. I'm going to use the ladies' room, I said, standing up abruptly. I'll be right back. Please just try to talk nicely. Greg looked up at me and his face instantly softened into that perfect, loving mask. Take your time, darling. We'll be fine. Just having some man-to-man time. I looked at Tyler. He wasn't looking at me. He was watching Greg's hands. Be right back, I said. I walked away from the table, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor. I went into the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. Just get through tonight, I told myself. Greg is trying, Tyler is just being a teenager. Once we're married, they'll settle down. We'll be a family, it's going to be okay. I stayed in the bathroom for maybe 6 or 7 minutes. I reapplied my lipstick. I took a few deep breaths. I checked my phone, no new messages. Little did I know, those 7 minutes would change the course of my entire life. When I walked back out to the dining room, the vibe had shifted completely. It was strange. Greg was leaning back in his chair, looking relaxed, swirling his wine glass. He looked like the cat who had just eaten the canary. He was humming a little tune. Tyler, on the other hand, looked pale, ghostly pale. He was gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles were white. He was sweating. "Everything okay?" I asked, sliding back into the booth. "Perfect," Greg said smoothly. "We had a great chat, didn't we, Ty?" I looked at my son. Tyler looked at me. His eyes were wide, pleading. He opened his mouth to say something, but then his eyes darted to Greg and he snapped his mouth shut. "Yeah," Tyler whispered, his voice shaking. "Great chat." "See," Greg smiled, reaching over and patting Tyler on the shoulder. Tyler flinched violently at the touch, pulling his shoulder away. Greg just laughed. "He's a jumpy one, we'll work on that." The rest of the dinner was a blur. I ate my salmon without tasting it. Greg did all the talking. He talked about the wedding, the honeymoon in Hawaii, the new house he was building for us. Tyler didn't eat a single bite. He just drank water. He kept checking his phone under the table, his thumbs moving furiously. "Who are you texting?" Greg asked at one point, his voice sharp. "No one," Tyler said, shoving the phone into his pocket. "Rude," Greg muttered. Finally, the check came. Greg paid with a black credit card. "Ready to go, family?" he asked. We walked out to the parking lot. The air was cool and crisp. "I'll drive you boys home," Greg said. "But first I need to stop by the hospital for a quick consult. Linda, do you mind driving Tyler home in your car? I'll come over later." "Sure," I said. We said our goodbyes. Greg leaned in and kissed me deeply. I felt Tyler look away in disgust. "I love you," Greg whispered in my ear. "Love you too," I said automatically. I got into my old sedan with Tyler. Greg got into his Porsche and roared away. The drive home was silent for the first 5 minutes. "Tyler," I said softly, "I'm sorry it was awkward, but thank you for coming. It meant a lot to me." Tyler didn't answer. He was staring out the window, his hand covering his mouth. "Ty, Mom," he said, his voice sounding strangled, "do you trust him?" "Who, Greg? Of course I do. I'm marrying him." "Don't," he whispered. I sighed, gripping the steering wheel. "Tyler, please, not this again. He's a good man." "You don't know him," Tyler said, turning to look at me. "You don't know what he's capable of." "And you do," I snapped, losing my patience. "You've barely spent 5 hours with him in 6 months. You're judging him because you miss your dad, and I get that, but—" "It's not about Dad," Tyler yelled. It was the first time he had raised his voice in years. "It's about him. He's evil, Mom." I pulled the car over to the side of the road. My heart was pounding. "That is enough. I don't want to hear that word again. He has done nothing but support us." Tyler looked at me, tears streaming down his face. He looked so broken. "I'm trying to save you," he whispered. "I don't need saving," I said firmly. "I need a supportive son." Tyler turned away, defeated. "Okay, Mom, okay." We drove the rest of the way in silence. When we got to the driveway of our small rental house, I reached into my purse to check the time. My hand grasped empty air. I dug around, wallet, keys, lipstick, tissues. No phone. "Shoot," I muttered. "What?" Tyler asked. "My phone, I must have left it at the restaurant. I had it on the table when we sat down." "I'll call it," Tyler said, pulling out his phone. He dialed my number. It rang and rang, no answer. "It's probably on silent," I groaned. "I have to go back. I have my shift schedule on there and all the wedding vendor contacts. If I lose that phone, I'm dead." "I'll come with you," Tyler said quickly, too quickly. "No," I said, looking at his pale face. "You look exhausted. Go inside, get some sleep. I'll be back in 20 minutes. "Mom, please let me come," he begged. "I don't want you going alone." "It's a restaurant, Tyler, not a war zone. Go inside, lock the door, I'll be right back." I didn't wait for him to argue. I watched him walk to the front door, shoulders slumped, looking like the weight of the world was on his back. I felt a pang of guilt. I was too hard on him. I would apologize when I got back. We would have hot chocolate and talk. I turned the car around and drove back toward the city. By the time I pulled into the parking lot of the Velvet Table, the lights were mostly off. The closed sign was flipped in the window. The parking lot was empty, except for one employee car. I parked and ran to the front door, locked. I knocked on the glass. Hello, someone, I left my phone. I saw movement inside. A waitress, Sarah, the one who had served us, walked cautiously to the door. She peered out, saw it was me, and her face went slack. She fumbled with the keys and cracked the door open. I'm so sorry, I said, breathless. I left my phone on table 4. I know you're closed, but can I just grab it? She didn't step aside, she just stared at me. Please, I said. She opened the door wider. Come in quickly. I stepped inside. The restaurant was eerie in the dark. It should be right there, I said, pointing toward our booth. But she didn't look at the booth. She reached behind her, turned the deadbolt and click asterisk. She locked us in. And that brings us back to this moment. Standing in the kitchen, the smell of bleach and old grease, Sarah's trembling hand on the mouse. Promise you won't pass out, she said again. Just show me, I whispered. My hands were shaking now too. I felt a cold dread seeping into my bones. What did Greg do? It wasn't just Greg, Sarah said, her voice barely audible. It was your son. She clicked play. The video started. It was a grainy black and white feed from the security camera positioned right above table 4. I saw myself stand up and walk away toward the bathroom. On the screen, Greg watched me leave. As soon as I was out of frame, his entire demeanor changed. The smile vanished instantly. He didn't look like my fiancé anymore. He looked like a predator. He leaned across the table. I saw his lips move. There was no audio, but his body language was aggressive. He pointed a finger at Tyler. Tyler shrank back in his seat. Then Greg did something that made me gasp. He reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small, clear vial. My hand flew to my mouth. Drugs, poison. He uncorked the vial. He looked around the restaurant. The waiter was busy at another table. Greg quickly poured the contents of the vial into my wine glass, the glass I had been drinking from, the glass I was supposed to finish when I came back. I felt like I was going to throw up. He was drugging me. Why? But then something happened that I never expected. Tyler saw him. Tyler, who had been looking down, looked up at the exact second Greg poured the liquid. On the screen, Tyler froze. Greg put the vial away and sat back, smiling that sick, smug smile. He said something to Tyler. He tapped the wine glass. He was daring him. I could see Tyler panic. He looked at the bathroom direction. He looked at the glass. He looked at Greg. Greg laughed. On the screen, he looked so relaxed. He clearly thought Tyler was too weak to do anything. He thought he had won. Then I saw Tyler move. He didn't scream. He didn't flip the table. He reached into his own pocket. He pulled out his phone, but he didn't text anyone. He set the phone on the table, face down, recording. Then he reached for my glass. Greg's hand shot out to stop him, but Tyler was faster. Tyler brought the glass to his own lips. No, I screamed in the kitchen, forgetting my promise to be quiet. Tyler, no. But on the screen, my 16-year-old son looked Greg dead in the eye, and he drank it. He drank the poisoned wine, all of it. He slammed the empty glass down on the table. Greg looked stunned. For the first time, the cool doctor looked terrified. He hadn't expected that. Tyler wiped his mouth. He said something to Greg. He pointed at the camera above them. Greg looked up at the camera, his face pale. Then I walked back into the frame. I saw myself sit down. I saw myself smile at them. I saw Tyler looking pale, sweating. I thought he was just anxious. I didn't know he was dying. The video ended. The screen went black. I fell to my knees on the dirty kitchen floor. The world was spinning. He drank it, I sobbed. He drank it to save me. Sarah, the waitress, was crying too. She crouched down next to me. There's more, she whispered. That's not even the worst part. Before you came back, when he drank it, he handed Greg a note. Greg crumpled it up and threw it under the table. When I was cleaning up, I found it. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a crumpled, wine-stained napkin. She handed it to me. My hands shook so hard I could barely unfold it. In Tyler's messy handwriting, it said 3 words. 3 words that stopped my heart. I know about the insurance. I stared at the note. Insurance. Suddenly, pieces of a puzzle I didn't even know existed slammed together. Greg had insisted on taking out a massive life insurance policy on me last month. He said it was standard for couples getting married. He said it was to protect Tyler if anything happened to me. He was going to kill me, tonight. And my son knew. "Where is he?" I screamed, grabbing Sarah's shoulders. "Where is my son?" "You said he went home," Sarah said. "But the poison, it takes about an hour to kick in. I heard Greg say that on the phone in the hallway earlier. He said, it'll look like a heart attack in her sleep." I looked at my watch. It had been exactly 1 hour since we left the restaurant. "Tyler is alone at home," I whispered, horror choking me. "He sent me away. He wanted me out of the house so I wouldn't be there when—" "Oh my God," Sarah said. "I have to go," I scrambled up, slipping on the greasy floor. "I have to get to him." "Wait," Sarah grabbed my arm again. "You can't just go, Greg, he's outside." I froze. "What?" "I saw his car," she said, her eyes wide with terror. "The Porsche. It's parked across the street in the shadows. He followed you back here, he's watching." My blood ran cold. He knew I forgot the phone. He knew I might see something. Or maybe he was just waiting to make sure I went home to find Tyler dead. "He's waiting for me," I realized. "If you walk out that front door," Sarah whispered, "he'll know you know." I looked at the back door of the kitchen. "Is there another way out?" I asked. "The delivery dock," Sarah said, "but my car is out front." "Give me your keys," I said, my voice changing. The fear was still there, but something else was taking over. A mother's rage, pure, hot, and dangerous. "I need your car, I'm going to save my son, and then I'm going to kill Greg." Sarah hesitated, then reached into her pocket and dropped a set of keys into my hand. "It's the beat-up Honda around the back," she said. "Go, save him." I kicked off my high heels. I ran barefoot toward the delivery dock. I had 10 minutes to get across town, 10 minutes to save my boy. I burst out into the cold night air, the rain hitting my face. I found the Honda. I jammed the key in the ignition. As I sped out of the alleyway, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Under the street lamp across the road, I saw the silver Porsche. And then I saw the headlights turn on. He saw me. He was coming. The old Honda rattled and shook as I pushed the gas pedal all the way to the floor. The steering wheel vibrated in my hands, fighting me every inch of the way, but I didn't care. I would have driven a bicycle through a tornado if it meant getting to Tyler. In the rearview mirror, the bright LED headlights of the Porsche cut through the darkness like predator eyes. He was close, too close. "Come on," I screamed at the dashboard, tears streaming down my face. "Come on, move." My mind was a chaotic mess of images. Tyler's face at dinner, the way he flinched when Greg touched him, the sadness in his eyes that I had mistaken for teenage moodiness. He had been trying to tell me. He had been trying to warn me for months, and I had ignored him. I had told him to be nice. I had told him to give Greg a chance. I had basically invited the wolf into the henhouse and handed him a knife. The guilt hit me harder than the fear. My son drank poison to save me. He saw his mother about to be murdered, and he didn't hesitate. He took the bullet. "Please let him be alive," I prayed, gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white. "Please, God, take me instead. Just don't take my boy." The Porsche swerved into the left lane, trying to pull up beside me. Greg was trying to run me off the road. I looked over. Through the rain-streaked window, I saw his silhouette. He wasn't looking at the road. He was looking right at me. And even in the dark, I could feel the cold, calculated rage radiating off him. He wasn't the charming surgeon anymore. He was a monster who had been caught. I saw him yank his steering wheel to the right. "He's going to ram me." "No, you don't," I hissed. I slammed on the brakes. The Honda's tires screeched, locking up on the wet asphalt. The car skidded, fishtailing violently. Greg's Porsche shot past me, missing my front bumper by inches. He hadn't expected me to stop. As his taillights flew ahead, I wrenched the wheel to the left, diving down a narrow side street that I knew cut through the old industrial district. It was a shortcut I used to take when I was late for my nursing shifts. I didn't look back. I navigated the twists and turns of the dark alleyways, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I turned off the headlights, driving in the dark, guided only by the faint orange glow of the street lamps overhead. I held my breath. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes. No Porsche. I let out a sob of relief, but I didn't slow down. I was 5 minutes from home. But as I drove, a terrifying thought crept into my mind, a thought that made my blood run cold. If Greg couldn't catch me, he wasn't going to keep chasing me. He knew where I was going. He was going to go straight to the house, to finish what he started. I floored it again, blowing through a stop sign, risking everything. When I finally screeched into our gravel driveway, the house was dark. The front porch light, which I always left on, was out. The shadows of the oak tree in the yard looked like long, grasping fingers reaching for the front door. I didn't see the Porsche, but that didn't mean he wasn't here. He could have parked around the block, he could be inside already. I jumped out of the car, not even bothering to close the door. I ran up the steps, fumbling for my keys. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped them. No, 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 I cried, dropping to my knees to scrabble for them in the dark. I found them, I jammed the key into the lock. It wouldn't turn. I tried again, stuck. Then I realized. The door wasn't locked, it was already slightly ajar. My stomach dropped to my feet. I pushed the door open slowly. It creaked, a low, mournful sound that echoed in the silent house. Tyler, I whispered. Silence. The air inside the house felt heavy, thick with a tension I couldn't explain. It smelled like our house, laundry, detergent and cinnamon, but underneath there was something else, something metallic. Tyler, I screamed, abandoning caution. I ran to the living room, empty. I ran to the kitchen, empty. Then I saw it. Tyler's bedroom door was closed. I sprinted down the hallway. I didn't think about Greg. I didn't think about the weapon he might have. I only thought about my son. I burst into his room. Ty. I froze. Tyler was lying on his bed. He was still wearing his buttoned-down shirt from dinner, but it was unbuttoned at the collar. One arm was hanging off the side of the mattress. He wasn't moving. Oh God, I sobbed, rushing to his side. I fell to my knees beside the bed. His face was pale, a sickly grey colour in the moonlight filtering through the window. His lips were slightly blue. There was a small trail of foam at the corner of his mouth. Tyler, baby, wake up, I shook his shoulder. Mom is here, Mom is here. He was warm, but he was limp, dead weight. I pressed my fingers to his neck, searching for a pulse. My own heart was beating so loud I couldn't feel anything at first. I held my breath, closing my eyes, praying, begging. Thumpy. It was faint, weak, thread-like, but it was there. Thumpy, thumpy. He's alive, I gasped. He's alive. But for how long? The poison had been in his system for over an hour. As a nurse, I knew the signs. His breathing was shallow. He was going into shock. His organs were starting to shut down. I needed to call 911, immediately. I patted my pockets. Empty. I had left my phone at the restaurant. That was why this whole nightmare started. Tyler's phone, I muttered. I began frantically patting down his pockets. Jeans, shirt, nothing. I looked around the room, his desk, the floor. Where was his phone? Then I remembered. In the video, he had put his phone face down on the table to record Greg. He must have put it back in his pocket. I checked his back pocket. There it was. I grabbed it, my fingers slick with sweat. I pressed the side button. The screen lit up. Enter passcode. Damn it, I hissed. Tyler, what's your code? I tried his birthday, incorrect. I tried my birthday, incorrect. I tried 0, incorrect, wait 1 minute. No, I screamed, throwing the phone onto the duvet. I had to get him to the car. I had to drive him to the ER myself. It was the only way. I grabbed his arm and pulled. Come on, baby, you have to help me, I can't carry you alone. He groaned, a low, painful sound that tore my heart in two. His eyelids fluttered, showing only the whites of his eyes. Mom, he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. I've got you, I cried, pulling him into a sitting position. His head lolled back. I've got you, Ty, we're going to the hospital. No, he mumbled, his speech slurred. Trap, it's a trap. SHHH, save your energy. I wrapped my arm around his waist and heaved. I was fueled by adrenaline, stronger than I had ever been in my life. I managed to drag him off the bed. We stumbled toward the bedroom door. And then the lights in the hallway clicked on. I froze. Standing in the doorway, blocking our exit, was Greg. He wasn't wearing his suit jacket anymore. His white shirt was rolled up to the elbows. He was holding a pair of black latex gloves. Snap, snap. He pulled them on, his eyes calm, almost bored. Going somewhere, Linda? He asked softly. I dragged Tyler back a step, shielding him with my body. Get away from us, I growled. It wasn't a scream. It was a low, animalistic warning. Greg chuckled. He walked into the room, looking around at the posters on the wall, the messy desk. You know, he said casually, I really tried with this kid. I offered him the watch. I offered to pay for college. If he had just taken the bribe, none of this would be necessary. He drank the poison, I spat. He knows what you did. I know what you did. Greg stopped and looked at me. His expression didn't change. No guilt, no fear, just annoyance. Yes, he sighed. That was unexpected. Smart kid. I underestimated him. I thought he was just a sullen brat. Turns out he's a martyr. He took a step closer. It changes the timeline a bit, Greg admitted. I was planning on you having a heart attack in your sleep tonight. Tyler would find you in the morning. Then, a few weeks later, the grieving son, unable to cope, would take his own life. Tragic, clean. I felt bile rise in my throat. You monster. But now, Greg continued, ignoring me, Tyler has overdosed. A teenage suicide pact, or maybe he poisoned you and then himself. We'll figure out the narrative later. The important thing is the outcome. Why? I asked, my voice trembling. Why are you doing this? We loved you. Greg laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. Love doesn't pay the bookies, Linda, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a syringe. It was capped, but the liquid inside was clear and deadly. I'm not a surgeon because I want to save lives, he said, tapping the syringe. I'm a surgeon because I like the control and the money, but lately the money hasn't been enough. Bad investments, a few poker games gone wrong. I owe people who don't take. I'll pay you next week for an answer. He looked at me with dead eyes. Your life insurance policy is worth $2 million. Tyler's is worth $500,000. That clears my debt and buys me a nice condo in Miami. You're insane, I whispered. You'll never get away with this. Sarah knows, the waitress. She saw the video. Greg smiled. Sarah, the girl on probation for theft. Who do you think the police will believe? The respected chief of surgery, or the drug addict waitress who broke into the security system? My heart sank. He had thought of everything. Now, Greg said, stepping forward, let's get this over with. Put him on the bed, Linda. It will be easier if you don't fight. No, I said, tightening my grip on my son. Greg's face hardened. I said, put him on the bed. He lunged. He was fast. He grabbed my arm and twisted it. I screamed as pain shot up my shoulder. I lost my grip on Tyler and he slumped to the floor with a heavy thud. Greg shoved me backward. I tripped over Tyler's legs and fell hard, hitting my head on the nightstand. Stars exploded in my vision. I tried to sit up, but the room was spinning. Greg stood over Tyler. He looked down at my son's unconscious body with disgust. Stupid kid, he muttered. You should have just taken the watch. He uncapped the syringe. No, I screamed, trying to crawl forward. Don't touch him, kill me, just kill me. Greg ignored me. He knelt down beside Tyler. He grabbed Tyler's arm, looking for a vein. This will stop his heart in 10 seconds, Greg said calmly, as if he were explaining a procedure to a medical student. Painless, much nicer than the slow-acting stuff he drank at dinner. He positioned the needle. I squeezed my eyes shut. I couldn't watch my son die. I had failed him. I had failed everything. I'm sorry, Tyler, I'm so sorry. But then, something happened that made the air leave the room. A hand shot up. Fast, strong. Tyler's hand clamped around Greg's wrist. My eyes flew open. Tyler's eyes were open too. And they weren't groggy, they weren't glassy or dying. They were wide awake, and they were furious. Greg froze. He stared at the hand gripping his wrist, his brain unable to process what was happening. You talk too much, Tyler said. His voice wasn't slurred, it was crystal clear. Before Greg could react, Tyler twisted his wrist with a sickening asterisk crack. Greg screamed, dropping the syringe. It rolled across the floor. Tyler sat up. He didn't look like a dying boy anymore. He moved with a speed and aggression I had never seen before. He punched Greg square in the nose. Crunch! Greg fell back, blood spurting from his face. He scrambled backward, looking at Tyler with pure horror. How? Greg sputtered, choking on blood. You drank it. I saw you drink it. Tyler stood up. He wiped the foam from his mouth with the back of his hand. He looked down at Greg like he was a bug he was about to step on. Yeah, I drank it, Tyler said, his voice cold. I drank the cranberry juice. I lay on the floor, stunned. Cranberry juice. Tyler glanced at me, and for a second his eyes softened. I swapped the vials, Mom. He looked back at Greg. I knew you were shady from day one, Tyler said, stepping closer to the cowering man. But I didn't know what you were planning until I found the search history on your iPad 3 weeks ago. Undetectable poisons, life insurance payout timelines. Greg's eyes widened. So, Tyler continued, I broke into your bag yesterday while you were in the shower. I found the vial, foxglove extract, nasty stuff. Greg was shaking now. You switched it. I dumped it down the sink, Tyler said. Refilled it with concentrated cranberry juice and water. Put it back in your pocket. He smirked, a dark, satisfied smirk. I knew you'd try to use it tonight. I just needed to catch you doing it on camera. My mouth fell open. My son, my quiet, moody, hoodie-wearing son, had outsmarted a surgeon. He had orchestrated the entire thing. The foam, I whispered. Toothpaste, Tyler said. Dramatic effect. I needed you to confess, Greg. I needed you to say the words out loud while my phone was recording in my pocket. He pulled his phone out of his pocket. The screen was red. Recording. And guess what? Tyler said, holding the phone up. You came through loud and clear. Greg looked at the phone, then at the syringe on the floor, then at the door. He was cornered. And he knew it. The fear in Greg's eyes vanished, replaced by a desperate, animalistic panic. Give me the phone, Greg snarled. He scrambled to his feet. He wasn't a cool, collected killer anymore. He was a desperate man with nothing to lose. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out something else. A gun. Small, black, deadly. I didn't want to use this, Greg said, his voice shaking. He pointed it at Tyler. But you little punk, you just ruined everything. Tyler, run, I screamed, scrambling to my feet. Nobody moves, Greg yelled. He swung the gun between me and Tyler. Give me the phone, Tyler, now, or I put a bullet in your mother's head. Tyler hesitated, his confidence faltered. He looked at me, terror finally breaking through his brave mask. Don't hurt her, Tyler said, holding out the phone. Bring it here, Greg ordered. Tyler took a step forward. Closer, Greg hissed. Tyler took another step. He was within arm's reach of Greg. Now drop it on the floor and kick it to me. Tyler slowly lowered his hand. But as he did, I saw his eyes flick to the side, to the baseball bat leaning against his closet door, the bat he hadn't touched in 3 years. He was too far away from it. He couldn't reach it in time. Greg smiled. He had won again. Smart kid, Greg sneered, but not smart enough. He reached out his left hand to grab the phone, keeping the gun trained on me with his right. Say goodbye to your mom, Tyler. Greg's finger tightened on the trigger. I braced myself for the bullet. But I had forgotten one thing. I wasn't just a victim in this story, I was a mother. And I was standing right next to the heavy brass lamp on the bedside table. As Greg's focus shifted to Tyler and the phone, I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I moved. I grabbed the lamp with both hands. It was heavy, solid metal. Hey, Greg, I shouted. Greg turned his head toward me, surprised. That split second was all I needed. I swung the lamp like a baseball bat. I put every ounce of my rage, my fear, and my betrayal into that swing. The base of the lamp connected with Greg's outstretched arm, the arm holding the gun. Crack! The sound of bone breaking was loud and sickening. Greg shrieked in agony. The gun flew out of his hand and skittered across the floor, sliding under the bed. He grabbed his shattered arm, doubling over. Now, Tyler, I yelled. Tyler didn't need to be told twice. He didn't go for the bat, he went for Greg. He tackled the man who had tried to kill us. They crashed into the bookshelf, sending trophies and books flying. Greg was bigger, but he was hurt, and Tyler was fighting with the fury of a son protecting his mother. Greg tried to punch Tyler with his good arm, but Tyler ducked. Tyler drove his shoulder into Greg's stomach, winding him. "Stay down," Tyler yelled. But Greg was fighting for his life. He kicked Tyler in the chest, sending him stumbling back. Greg scrambled toward the door. He was trying to run. "No, you don't," I screamed. I looked around for a weapon. The lamp was on the floor, the gun was under the bed. I saw Greg's discarded medical bag near the door. I grabbed the strap and swung it as he ran past me. It tangled around his legs. Greg tripped. He crashed face first into the doorframe. He groaned, trying to push himself up, blood streaming from his nose and his forehead. He looked up at me, dazed. "Linda, please," he wheezed. "I can explain." I stood over him. I was breathing hard. My hair was a mess, my dress was torn. I looked down at the man I had planned to marry, the man I had let into my bed, the man who had tried to murder my son. I felt a coldness settle in my chest, a clarity I had never felt before. "You're right, Greg," I said softly. "You do owe people money." I looked at Tyler. He was standing up, bruising forming on his cheek, but he was standing tall. He looked at me, and for the first time in years the barrier between us was gone. We were a team again. "Tie him up," I told Tyler. Tyler nodded. He grabbed the cord from his video game console. We tied Greg's hands behind his back. We tied his ankles. He was sobbing now, begging, "Please, Linda, I'll leave, you'll never see me again, just let me go." I walked over to where his phone had fallen out of his pocket during the fight. I picked it up. I dialed 911. 911, what is your emergency? I looked Greg in the eye as I spoke. "I'd like to report an attempted murder," I said calmly, "and I have a confession recorded." I hung up the phones. I sat down on the floor next to Tyler. We leaned against the bed, shoulder to shoulder, watching Greg cry on the floor. Tyler reached out and took my hand. His grip was strong. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," he whispered. I knew you wouldn't believe me without proof." I squeezed his hand, tears finally spilling over. Real tears this time, tears of relief. "I'm sorry I didn't trust you," I said. "You saved us, Ty. You're the bravest man I know." Tyler rested his head on my shoulder. "I couldn't let him hurt you, Mom. You're all I've got." We sat there in silence, listening to the distant sound of sirens getting closer. The nightmare was over, or so I thought. But as the red and blue lights started to flash against the bedroom window, Greg stopped crying. He looked up at us from the floor. His face was bloody, swollen and broken, but he started to smile. It was a slow, terrifying smile. "You think this is over," he whispered, his voice raspy. I frowned. "The police are here, Greg, it's over." "You forgot one thing," Greg wheezed. "The debt, the people I owe money to, they don't like it when their investment goes to jail." He chuckled, a wet, bubbling sound. "I'm not the only one who knows where you live, Linda. I gave them your address as collateral." My blood ran cold. "What?" I whispered. "If I don't pay them by midnight tonight," Greg said, checking the clock on the wall, "they come to collect, and they don't want money anymore." The clock on the wall read 11:45 p.m. And just then, down the quiet suburban street, I heard the sound of heavy engines, not police sirens. Motorcycles. Lots of them. The roar of the engines grew louder. It wasn't just a sound, it was a vibration that shook the picture frames on the walls. I ran to the window and peeked through the blinds. My stomach turned to ice. There were 6 of them, 6 large motorcycles idling at the end of our driveway. The riders were wearing leather cuts, their faces obscured by helmets or dark visors. They weren't parking, they were waiting. "They're here," I whispered, turning back to Tyler. Tyler was pale, but he didn't look scared anymore. He looked focused. He looked at the gun under the bed. "Don't," I said, reading his mind. "You are not touching that gun." "Mom, they're going to kill us," Tyler said urgently. Greg wasn't lying, look at them. On the floor, Greg was laughing. It was a manic, desperate sound. Blood bubbled at his nose. "You're out of time, Linda," he screamed. "Untie me. If I walk out there with the money, they might let you live. If they come in here and find me tied up, they'll burn this house down with you inside." I looked at the clock, 11:50 p.m. The police sirens were still distant wails in the background, too far away. The motorcycles were right here. I had a choice to make. I could untie the monster who tried to kill my son and hope he had mercy. Or I could stand my ground. I looked at Greg, I looked at the fear in his eyes. He wasn't scared for us, he was scared for himself. He wanted to be untied so he could run. "No," I said firmly. I walked over to the door and engaged the deadbolt. I dragged the heavy dresser in front of the bedroom door. "Mom, what are you doing?" Tyler asked. "Buying time," I said. "We are not opening that door." Outside, the engines cut off. Silence. Then heavy footsteps on the gravel. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Bam. A fist pounded on the front door downstairs. "Gregory," a deep voice boomed. "Time up, Doc." Greg thrashed on the floor against his bonds. "I'm up here, help, they have me tied up." I grabbed a sock from the laundry basket and stuffed it into Greg's mouth. "Shut up," I hissed. He glared at me, his eyes bulging with rage, muffling screams into the cotton. Downstairs, the pounding stopped. "He's not answering," the voice outside growled. "Break it," another voice said. Crash. The sound of the front door being kicked in echoed through the house like a gunshot. I grabbed Tyler and pulled him into the corner of the room behind the bed. We huddled together. I wrapped my arms around him, shielding him with my body. "Stay down," I whispered into his hair. "Whatever happens, you stay down." We heard heavy boots stomping on the hardwood floors downstairs. Furniture was being overturned. Glass was breaking. "Doc," the voice yelled. Come out wherever you are." They were coming up the stairs. My heart was hammering so hard it hurt. I looked around the room for a weapon. The lamp was broken. The bat was too far. I saw the gun under the bed. I reached out. My fingers brushed the cold metal. I pulled it toward me. I had never held a gun in my life. It felt heavy, wrong, but as the footsteps reached the top of the landing, I pointed it at the bedroom door. The doorknob rattled. "Locked." "He's in here," the voice said. Thud. Someone threw their shoulder against the door. The wood splintered. The dresser I had dragged in front of it slid an inch. Thud. Another hit, the door frame cracked. I cocked the gun. I didn't know if I was doing it right, but I heard a click. "Police," I screamed at the door. "I have called the police. They are 2 minutes away. Get out." Silence on the other side of the door. Then a rough laugh. "Police take 10 minutes in this neighborhood, lady," the voice said. "We only need 2. Smash. The door flew open. The dresser toppled over with a deafening crash. 2 men stepped into the room. They were huge, dressed in leather and denim. The lead biker had a grey beard and a scar running down his cheek. He held a crowbar in his hand. He looked at me. He looked at the gun in my shaking hands. Then he looked at Greg, hogtied on the floor with a sock in his mouth. The biker paused. He looked confused. "Well," the biker said, lowering the crowbar slightly, "this ain't what I expected." "Get out," I said, my voice shaking but loud. "Get out of my house." The biker looked at Greg. Greg was making frantic muffled noises, nodding his head toward me, his eyes pleading. The biker stepped forward. "Stay back," I yelled. "I'll shoot." The biker stopped. He held up his free hand. "Easy, Mama Bear," he said. His voice was surprisingly calm. "I ain't here for you." I blinked. "What?" "I'm here for the doc," the biker said, gesturing to Greg with the crowbar. "He borrowed 50 grand from us 3 months ago, said he had a sure thing investment, then he ghosted us." He took a step closer to Greg. Greg whimpered, shrinking away. "He told us he was getting married," the biker continued, looking at me. "Told us his new wife was rich, said he'd pay us back with her money." My jaw dropped. "Rich me." "I'm a nurse," I said, bewildered. "I rent this house. I drive a 10-year-old Honda." The biker looked around the modest room. He saw the peeling paint, the cheap furniture. He looked back at Greg, his eyes narrowed. "You lied to us, Doc," the biker growled. Greg shook his head frantically, trying to spit out the sock. The biker reached down and yanked the sock out of Greg's mouth. "She has life insurance," Greg screamed immediately. $2 million, just kill her, make it look like a robbery, you get the money in a month. The room went deadly silent. I felt a coldness wash over me. Even now, with a gun pointed at him, facing a biker gang, he was trying to sell my life. Tyler stood up next to me. "He tried to poison us," Tyler said, his voice steady. "He's a murderer and he's broke." The biker looked at Tyler, then he looked at me, then he looked at Greg. He started to laugh. It was a deep belly laugh. "You want us to do a hit for you?" the biker asked Greg. "For a payout in a month, when you already stiffed us on 50 grand? The biker shook his head. "We aren't hitmen, Doc, we're loan sharks, we want our cash, now." "I don't have it," Greg cried, "but I will, just help me." The biker sighed, he looked at his friend. "He doesn't have it." "Police are coming, boss," the other biker said, looking out the window. "I see lights down the block." The lead biker nodded, he looked at me. "You called the cops?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Good," he said. He turned to Greg. "You're lucky, Doc," the biker said. "If the cops weren't coming, we'd break every bone in your body, but I ain't going to jail for a loser like you." He leaned down and grabbed Greg's wrist. He saw the expensive watch, the one he had tried to give Tyler. "I'll take this as interest," the biker said, ripping the watch off Greg's wrist. He stood up, he looked at me. "Sorry about the door, ma'am," he said. And then, just like that, they turned around and walked out. We heard them run down the stairs. We heard the motorcycles roar to life. And then, they peeled away into the night, just as the blue and red strobe lights of the police cruisers flooded the street. I lowered the gun, my legs gave out, I collapsed onto the bed. "They left," I whispered. "They just left." Tyler sat down next to me. He was shaking now, the adrenaline wearing off. "You were amazing, Mom," he said. I pulled him into a hug. We're okay." On the floor, Greg was sobbing quietly. He was defeated, broken. 2 minutes later, uniformed officers stormed up the stairs, guns drawn. "Police, drop the weapon." I pointed to the gun on the floor where I had dropped it. I raised my hands. "He's the one you want," I said, pointing at Greg. "He tried to kill my son." The next few hours were a blur of flashing lights, questions, and paramedics. They took Greg away in handcuffs. He didn't look at me as they walked him past the ambulance where I was sitting. He stared straight ahead, his face a mask of misery. I gave my statement, Tyler gave his. We showed them the video, we played the audio recording. The lead detective, a kind woman named Martinez, listened to the recording of Greg confessing to the poison. She shook her head. "He's going away for a long time," she told me. "Attempted murder, insurance fraud, and I'm sure once we dig into his finances, we'll find a lot more." She looked at Tyler. "You're a brave kid," she said. "Swapping the poison, that was genius. Stupid, risky, but genius." Tyler shrugged, holding an ice pack to his cheek. "I just wanted my mom back." That line hit me harder than anything else that night. I just wanted my mom back. He hadn't just saved my life. He had fought for us, for the relationship we used to have before I got so lost trying to find a man to fix our lives. I reached out and squeezed his hand. "You've got me," I said, "for good." Just then, a beat-up Honda pulled up to the curb, screeching to a halt behind the police cars. Sarah jumped out. She was still wearing her waitress uniform. She ran toward us, ducking under the police tape. "Linda, Tyler," she screamed. She ran up to the ambulance. She looked at us, checking for injuries. When she saw we were alive, she burst into tears. "I was so scared," she sobbed. "I waited for you to call, I thought." "We made it," I said, standing up and hugging her. "Thanks to you. If you hadn't shown me that video, I would be dead right now." Sarah wiped her eyes. I couldn't let him win. I've seen guys like him before. They think they can do whatever they want to people like us." "Not anymore," I said. The sun was starting to come up over the rooftops. The sky was turning a soft shade of pink and orange. The nightmare was over. The monsters were gone. 6 months later. The smell of hot dogs and fresh-cut grass filled the air. The sun was shining brightly, not a cloud in the sky. I sat on the metal bleachers, shielding my eyes with my hand. "Come on, Ty," I yelled, "keep your eye on it." On the baseball field, Tyler stood at home plate. He tapped the bat against his shoes. He adjusted his helmet. He wasn't wearing a hoodie. He was wearing a bright red jersey with the number 12 on the back. He looked healthy. He had gained weight. The dark circles under his eyes were gone. He was laughing with the catcher. It had been a hard 6 months. We had to move. The old house had too many bad memories. We found a smaller apartment closer to the city. It was cramped and the walls were thin, but it was ours. I worked extra shifts to pay for the lawyer to make sure Greg got the maximum sentence. He got 20 years. He tried to plead insanity. The judge didn't buy it. But we were happy. Tyler was back in school, his grades were up, and he had finally agreed to rejoin the baseball team. I looked to my left. Sarah was sitting next to me holding a bag of popcorn. She wasn't a waitress anymore. With my recommendation, she had gotten a job as a receptionist at the hospital. She was studying to be a nurse. "He's going to hit it," Sarah said, chewing a kernel. "I can feel it." "Don't jinx it," I laughed. The pitcher wound up. The ball flew toward the plate. Crack. The sound was beautiful. The ball soared high into the air, over the shortstop's head, deep into the outfield. Tyler dropped the bat and ran. "Go, go, go," I screamed, jumping up and down. He rounded first base. He rounded second. He slid into third just as the ball came flying back in. "Safe," the umpire yelled. Tyler stood up, dusting off his pants. He looked up at the stands. He found me in the crowd. He didn't look away. He didn't hide. He smiled, a big, genuine ear-to-ear smile that reached his eyes. I smiled back, tears pricking the corners of my eyes. I didn't need a rich husband. I didn't need a big house. I didn't need a fancy watch. I had my son. I had my friend. And for the first time in a long time, I had my life back. We were safe. We were together. And as Tyler gave me a thumbs up from third base, I knew that was the only wealth I would ever need. And we lived happily ever after with a big smile.